Formula One.
A party in the city where the heat is on all night on the beach till the break of dawn. Welcome to Miami. I am so sorry, but welcome to round 6 of the Formula One World Championship. Will Smith wasn't wrong. The heat is well and truly on, around 30 degrees air temperature at the moment, with the sun shining down on us as we gear up for the sound of Formula One cars taking to this 5.4 kilometre circuit which circles around the Hard Rock Stadium, home to the Miami Dolphins NFL team. You're listening to 5 Live F1, and with it being a sprint weekend, we really are well and truly thrust into things. One practice session already done and dusted earlier this afternoon. That saw Oscar Piastri finish fastest, but can he carry that through into sprint qualifying? We're about half an hour away from finding out. We've had a week off, and there's a fair bit to discuss, to remind ourselves of. Lots to get through. We'll also be getting updates from the Man City Wolves game as that heads into the second half. City are bidding to win 5 in a row for just the second time this season, 1-0 up at the half-time whistle. And we'll be heading to the Crucible for continued updates in the World Snooker Championships, where Ronnie O'Sullivan looks to be on the back foot. But right now, we're in the heat of Miami. My name's Harry Benjamin. I'm up in the commentary box right now, and I believe roaming around somewhere in between the garages, paddock, the NFL pitch, is Jenny Gow. Where are you, Jen?
I am right in the centre of this amazing Hard Rock Stadium NFL pitch. I have to say, they've put down some artificial grass, so we're not treading on the hallowed turf quite. But this is such an impressive venue, 75,000-seater stadium. And at the moment, music is blaring out. It's 82 degrees Fahrenheit. I have no idea what that is in centigrade, probably around 30, but it's baking hot. 25 minutes until this sprint qualifying begins, and you can sense the anticipation and the excitement. I've just come through at the back of the garages, and there are about 1 million people crammed into a very small space. Not actually 1 million people, but it feels like it, because F1 has arrived in America, and Miami is such a great place for it to be suited to. I mean, you've got the fake harbour, you've got everyone singing and dancing along with the music in their skimpy bikinis. Why not, if you've got the body for it? And, I mean, everyone is just having fun, Harry.
Absolutely. I mean, this kicks off the first of 3 American races we'll have throughout the year. Of course, Las Vegas and the US Grand Prix, the home of Formula One in America, some may say. Austin, Texas. That's all happening later on in the year. We'll come back to you in a little bit, Jen. I'm very pleased to, be in an air-conditioned commentary box, I must say. And alongside me is the BBC's F1 correspondent, Andrew Benson. And now let me get this right. Global Editorial Director of Racing at the Motorsport Network, Rebecca Clancy.
Well done. You can go and lie down now, Harry.
I've been stressing about that since FP1, I have to say. But, I mean, Jenny's not wrong, Beck, because Miami, this feels like it's an F1 race that's kind of tagged on to an event.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely is, isn't it? I mean, Jenny's right. As you walk around, you can barely move. Trying to go through a door, you're forever holding it up open for the 1,000 people that are coming through behind you. There are just people everywhere, and it's amazing because it's a proper Miami vibe here. Energy is amazing. The sun is out. It's too hot for me, I have to say. My pasty Irish skin doesn't quite like it. But it's brilliant. Everyone is well up for this. The drivers love it. It's just great being at the track. It's great being away from the track. There's a lot of fun to be had this weekend.
Andrew, did you like my Will Smith lyrics?
Very much, Harry.
I thought you did.
Very much.
I thought you did. But I suppose the good thing about being here is that, we're going to have to get used to it, because news, I think, coming in this morning, was it? Miami's here to stay on the calendar
till 2041. It's a 10-year extension of the current contract. I mean, this race really works, and I think what tells you what a great job they've done with it is that a lot of people, locals in Florida, will say this isn't Miami, this is Miami Gardens. It's a whole other city, and it's not a very salubrious part of South Florida, I can tell you, but they've managed to sort of ignore that somehow and imbue this event with the Miami vibe, as you say, Harry. And it goes around this Hard Rock Stadium. The paddock's in the middle of the stadium, as Jenny was saying, on the actual NFL pitch. That makes for a nice atmosphere. Everyone's milling around. All the team centres, motorhomes, they're not motorhomes obviously here, they're little buildings. They all kind of face each other. It's a very social vibe. And of course, everyone goes away from the track in the evening down to South Beach or downtown or Brickell or districts like this, which are a lot more glamorous than Miami Gardens, and soaks in the atmosphere. And it's really working, and you can tell how much business gets done here. There's so many activations. That's Beck's favourite word this weekend.
I've said it once.
She's at half of them.
But you're not. You're sacking them all off.
And I've been getting endless emails about sponsorship this, partner that, party the other. Of course, I'm too boring to go to any of them.
Oh, you're so popular, Benny.
So you know, you can feel the money basically, and that's what this race is about: money and exposure of the F1 brand to the US market.
But as you say, we are technically in Miami Gardens. Is that like when someone says, "I live in London," but they actually live in Surrey? Is it? Can you equate it to that?
It's more like saying it's the Westminster Grand Prix, but it's actually in Bolton Kingsland or something.
Okay, well, we'll roll with that, just to try and set the scene a little bit there, so we know where we're standing. Well, look, we are here. It's round 6. We've had a week off from Saudi Arabia. I think a well-needed rest for everybody involved in Formula One, and this is how the championship looks. It's Oscar Piastri, the Australian in the McLaren, who leads the drivers' standings. He's got 99 points. He is 10 points clear of his teammate Lando Norris. Then it's Max Verstappen just a couple of points behind him, with George Russell and Charles Leclerc rounding out the top 5. Over in the constructors' standings, McLaren lead the way. They have a 77-point advantage over Mercedes. Then it's Red Bull and Ferrari. Williams are in 5th. Then the midfield's pretty close at the back with Haas in 6th, followed by Aston Martin, Racing Bulls, Alpine and Sauber finishing up the list of 10 teams, with every team scoring points so far. But let's come to our championship leader coming into this race, Oscar Piastri. I mean, how impressed have you been with his start to the season on track and his demeanour off it?
I mean, he's definitely the coolest person in Miami, isn't he? He is stone cold. He's really impressed me. We've all known he's this great talent. The big fight that happened when he left Alpine and went to McLaren, and McLaren obviously victorious. They fought very hard to get him, and we're seeing why now. I think he's fully repaid them, and I think he's doing an absolutely brilliant job. There was a lot of chat coming into this year about Lando Norris being the favourite, but I think there was also a lot of chatter with us, wasn't there, within the paddock, Benny, about how, hang on, you shouldn't write off Oscar Piastri. He's got Mark Webber as his manager, brilliant driver in his time, but also Mark Webber, who made a big point of being a number 2 driver, certainly doesn't want his driver to feel that way, and is managing him and coaching him to not be the number 2 driver and to throw himself into the ring. Credit to McLaren, they've said, you guys go racing until we decide that you don't. So no, I think he's been absolutely brilliant. I think he's got the right attitude. I think he is steely with it. I think he's not trying to make friends in the paddock. He's, you aren't my best friend, I'm not playing chess with you on a private jet on our way over here sort of thing. I'm here to win the World Championship, and that is it.
It's like when Andrew doesn't want to play cards with me on the plane over. He's not here to make friends. We'll come back to this dynamic because it is so fascinating. But first, let's head to the Crucible. Jamie Broughton.
And Zhao Xintong has just booked his place in the final. He's just wrapped up victory over Ronnie O'Sullivan with a session to spare by 17 frames to 7. He knocked in a break of 88 to round up a fantastic performance from this young Chinese star. He'll now play the winner of the other semi-final between Judd Trump and Mark Williams.
Thanks, Jamie. And let's head to the football as well. City against Wolves into the second half. Sarah Mulkerrins.
53 minutes gone. It's City 1, Wolves 0. City ahead thanks to that Kevin De Bruyne goal in the first half. Remember, they need to win to go 2 points ahead of Newcastle. That would jump them into third in the table in that race for Champions League places. The second half has started like the first. City dominating the ball. Wolves trying to break. They did almost cut through that Wolves defence. Musetti was looking for the ball, but Ruben Dias was alert and was able to pull in a big clearing tackle and challenge. It's City 1, Wolves 0.
Thanks, Sarah. Continued updates throughout the course of the next half an hour. You're listening to 5 Live F1 as we build up to sprint qualifying in about 20 minutes or so. We're at the Miami Dolphins Stadium, the NFL team which this racetrack circles around, and the paddock, well, it's brilliant. It's located on the actual pitch, which I think is where we can find Jenny Gow again.
Yes, absolutely. Down here, just outside McLaren, actually. Mark Webber's here. I'm going to shoo him along. Go away. You're part of Piastri's team.
British world champion.
Well, we're going to. We're talking to Damon Hill, 1996 world champion, who is going to join our coverage this weekend. And Damon, it's delightful to have you joining our coverage. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm pretty excited as well, because I don't normally do actual commentary on the races, as you know. I'm happy to comment outside. So I'm going to be working with Harry, and we're going to keep this ball rolling and keep everyone informed. And hopefully we've got loads of racing to talk about. We've got qualifying coming up for the sprint in a minute, and then we got qualifying tomorrow, and then we got the sprint, and then we got the race. So by the time I get on that plane to come home, my brain will be fried.
You'll have earned your £2.50, that's fine. This championship is fascinating, isn't it? And you're stood here at McLaren, the two protagonists really playing it out, and Max Verstappen has just coolly walked past us as well, a new dad, everyone's commenting, congratulating him. There's still such a long way to go though in the championship.
Such a long season, and I think this is the thing, you know, you have to pace yourself for this. Any championship, any world championship is a long slog. My championship was only 16 races, it's 24, and where are we now? Well, this is the fifth race or sixth race? It's flying by, but I mean it's not concluded yet, so we've got a lot of points and a lot of swinging and toing and throwing over the rest of the championship is going to take place, and I think we'll see a bit of ebb and flowing. Don't count Max Verstappen out, he's definitely not, but it looks like it's a battle of wills between these two drivers at McLaren.
Speaking to Mark Webber just now, he commented that every driver is different, and when you put two drivers in the same stable, they will have some sort of reaction to each other, and it's just sailing that ship. And they've got two amazing people at the helm, Zach Brown and Andrea Stella, who will hopefully keep the ship steady. For them, for us, we like a bit of drama.
It is the dream situation for any team principal or team boss to have two cars fighting for the World Championship. Only the problem is you can't both win. And of course, this is where it gets interesting. We've seen some little tetchy moments with Oscar and Lando when it's come to team orders in the past. They both want to win very, very badly. They haven't won a World Championship. They've all won races now. So it's just going to get more and more tense. It's going to be a test of their ability to cope with pressure and ability to brush off the defeats, because there's going to be days when it goes wrong as well.
And how do you silence the media, the chat that inevitably happens in this very closed environment?
Well, I think George Russell had a very good quote I saw the other day, which was the only currency you have as a driver is your results, and that silences people if you win. But then it comes back again for the next race, so it never stops.
The gift that keeps on giving. Well, Damon, thank you so much for chatting to us. We will speak to you across the weekend. Very excited about that. But Harry, with just under 15 minutes, I want to go and find some more people. So I'll leave Damon and see who I can find.
Perfect. All right, Jen, go and find some people and we'll come back to you. Very excited to have 1996 Formula One World Champion Damon Hill in the commentary box on Saturday and Sunday, guiding you through the rest of the Miami Grand Prix weekend alongside myself. Is it going to be awkward, Andrew? Have you made up since you broke his stacking Williams all those years ago?
Yeah, we have.
You have made up?
Yeah. He actually apologised about 10 years later, having thrown me out of the Williams motorhome on the day that I broke that story, yes. He said I'd made myself look very stupid. Unfortunately, he wasn't right for him. Anyway.
All water under the bridge.
Yeah, and as you know, Harry, we had dinner last night. It was all very cordial, wasn't it? There's been a lot of water under the bridge with me and Damon, but the McLaren battle is so fascinating, isn't it? And on Oscar Piastri, for me, the most impressive thing this season is how he's turned form around from last year. You know, people were talking about Norris being the favourite for this year because last year he was definitely the dominant McLaren driver. Yes, Piastri won 2 races, but Norris won the qualifying battle something like 19-4 or something. And but Piastri's come in. He's had 3 pole positions, 3 wins. Is that correct? Just think of the stats. Coming into this season, Norris had got 4 career victories. Piastri had 2. Now they've got 5 each. That goes to show how much Piastri has done this season in just 5 races.
You just mentioned how many wins he's got there. Me and Harry were like, no, that can't be right. We both just double-checked it.
It was 2 poles.
Oh, 2 poles and 3 wins.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah, so... and Norris has been talking about his struggles with the car. But I think it's more than that. Piastri has stepped it up this year. He's worked really hard over the winter on what his weaknesses were. That was mainly qualifying. And he's nailed it so far this season. And he's such a cool customer. He's completely solid. And what you were saying earlier is really interesting. He's not out to make friends, but he's not out to make enemies either. Nobody has a problem with Oscar Piastri at all. He's a really nice guy. He's just keeps himself to himself, and he is the coolest, calmest Formula 1 driver I think I've ever seen.
Cooler than Kimi Räikkönen?
Yeah.
Wow. Ooh, now that's saying something. Cooler than the Iceman.
Well, that is saying something, since Benny's been around since 1950.
That is also correct. I mean, let's look at the other side of the garage, though, Beck. I mean, Lando Norris, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He owns his mistakes. He says if he made one and that he's got to do better, but he's still not fully 100% with the feeling in the car right now. So he's on the back foot in that respect. But is there any kind of momentum, because we're returning to the scene of his first Grand Prix victory a year ago?
Yeah, amazing. It's a year. With Lando Norris, there is a bit of a sense that he is letting the pressure weigh on him. He did an interview recently where he said, I want to prove that nice guys can win world championships, and I'm not sure either of us have met a guy who's nice on track. He went on to win a world championship. So it was interesting to read that, and actually for me the most interesting thing was that you're giving a lot of information to your competitors, and so they're all looking at that and thinking, oh okay, he'll leave a bit of a door open and he won't drive like this, and if he's going to be a nice guy, well, I'm not going to be a nice guy because I would have won the world championship. Max Verstappen doesn't race like that, Oscar Piastri doesn't race like that. And actually that's, for me, reading that interview, I thought that probably wasn't the best thing he could have said. And he's been talking a lot about the car. I sometimes feel like he talks so much, and I know for certain drivers there is certainly the case that the car has to be set up perfectly for them to get the most out of it. Other drivers, like Max Verstappen being the perfect example, can sit in a tank and get it around here in the quickest time. You know, it doesn't have to be perfectly set up for him. He can just make it work no matter the issues with the car. So maybe there's a bit of that with Lando Norris. Maybe he needs the car to be more fine-tuned to his style of driving than perhaps Piastri does. But there is just a part of me that thinks there's something niggling at him in his head, and you know, and I hope that's not the case. But just the vibes coming out from his camp. There's a lot of vibe talk this weekend with Miami. The sort of vibes coming from his direction. I don't know. You get the sense that he's feeling it quite a lot.
Either way, though, McLaren have got two number ones that will both be fast, both challenging for the championship. That's not going to end well, surely.
I mean, so far they've handled it really well. Zach Brown was talking a race or two ago about saying it's inevitable they're going to crash, but he's calm about that, because I think he thinks that they can handle the resulting fallout because of the personalities of the two drivers. They're not the sort of drivers, they're not a Max Verstappen type personality who demands to be the centre of attention all the time, demands the team focuses on them. They've bought into this idea. Sorry, everyone, I just banged my microphone while I was waving my arms around.
We love an animated Benson.
They bought into the idea that it's all for one and one for all. Of course, it's not going to be that easy to keep everything on track while they're competing for the championship, but they believe, Brown and Andrea Stella, that they can manage any of those sort of high-tension moments. And I would say at the moment, I kind of believe them. We'll have to wait and see whether that's actually how it plays out.
I mean, I kind of rub my hands together at the thought that we are going to get some fireworks. I kind of want to see it, to be honest. I think that's what we want as fans.
It will happen. It's inevitable, right? It almost happens. They both want the championship, you know, and they'll both say, I want it more than he wants it, you know, and that's great. They both want it the most, and there will inevitably come a time where they crash. We all know about papaya rules, but I think what McLaren were very good at last year was setting those standards and the papaya rules, saying that you race fairly, but you race, and whoever's ahead stays ahead. If someone gets an advantage, we'll give that place back. And I think that has really instilled within them, like Andrew was saying, that it's about the team first. And that's how it should be, and that's what every single team principal will tell you, it's team first. But that's not what every driver will tell you.
There's a particular transparency and matter-of-factness about the way McLaren go about their business. And it's not just on track. We see it off track as well, the way they deal with the media. They're just so fair and open. And for a Formula 1 team, that's not the easiest thing to do, because their natural sort of sense is to be secretive. And of course they're secretive. They don't reveal everything that's going on. But Andrea Stella, when he's explaining the way they've gone about running a race, or whether this has gone right or this has gone wrong, he's so normal about it. You know, he just tells you the truth as he sees it. And it's really refreshing to be sort of working with people like that. And I get the sense that inside the team it's the same. They're open with each other, they're direct with each other, and then they move on to the next thing. So everybody knows where everybody stands all the time, and there's no resentments that are allowed to build up.
Well, also worth reiterating, I mean, the season now, 24 Grand Prix, we're only at round 6, so this is going to go on and on and on as we get really into the crux of the season. We've got to talk about another driver, the only other driver who's got a Grand Prix victory that's not the two McLarens, and it's Max Verstappen, who actually missed Thursday media duties because him and his partner Kelly Piquet gave birth to a baby girl who a safe delivery. She gave birth. He was there on the sidelines. She gave birth, all well. They posted the photo on Instagram, and now he's back in the car racing. What does being a dad do to a Formula One driver?
I don't know what it does to me.
I don't know. Andrew, does it mellow you?
Do you understand how the mother-father side of things work? No, don't worry.
Can you explain it?
Go on, Benny.
I'm a father, but I'm not a Formula One driver, so it's kind of hard for me to comment.
Did it mellow your writing?
I certainly was very aware that I wasn't giving birth to my children. Let's put it that way, Harry.
It's a group effort. But look, he's here and he's ready to race. And what I'm trying to get my head around in the Red Bull scenario is how bad is this Red Bull car? Really?
Not bad.
So
obviously.
Well, no, but we talk about how far off the pace they have been at times throughout this year, but Verstappen sprinkles his magic. So I always find it hard to find the difference of where the Red Bull car almost stops and where Max Verstappen leads on.
It's the eternal question in Formula One, isn't it, Harry? How much is driver and how much is car? And we see with the very greatest drivers, and Max Verstappen is unquestionably one of those, that there are times when they do something that is unexpected in a car that has a particular level of performance. But I think what's confusing the picture about Red Bull, just on average, just be clear, it's the second fastest car in Formula One in qualifying. The McLaren's the fastest, obviously. Now, some of that pace is down to McLaren, but some of the Ferrari pace is down to Charles Leclerc. And is Charles Leclerc noticeably slower than Max Verstappen on a qualifying lap? I don't think that many people in the paddock would say that he was. Same with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Are they as much slower than is Verstappen that much quicker than them over a qualifying lap to offset the difference in the cars, if you see what I mean? So it's both, but he's the best driver in the world without question. The car has some frailties, and I think what's different between the McLaren car and the Red Bull car is that the Red Bull with Verstappen in it on certain types of circuits is pretty much a match for the McLaren, and we saw that in Japan and we saw it in Saudi Arabia. Both outstanding performances from Verstappen, but he's still got to drive his car. The McLaren is the more consistently fast car across the whole range of circuits, and that's what Red Bull are battling with at the moment. The McLaren is the fastest car, full stop, but the gap between them ebbs and flows from one point of being almost not there at all to Bahrain, for example, where they were just miles off. And every race weekend so far, we don't know where that performance pattern spread is going to land.
I think it's an interesting question, and I don't fully agree with you, Benny, because I think the gap is more extreme in the sense that with McLaren, they've got both drivers up there to therefore present the picture that the car is actually more drivable, and we know it's the fastest, as you say. But with Red Bull, and you talked about his two exceptional performances, that's Verstappen. That's him proving his point. How much? And you can't answer this question, and I know it's frustrating, but it's how much further ahead of the car is he? Because his teammates, I mean, he's rattling through them because apparently they're not very good. But is it them or is it the car? And that's the question. And with Charles Leclerc, and obviously Lewis Hamilton has spoken about the struggles that he's having, but he's not miles off the pace. It's not the end of the world for Lewis Hamilton. So I think it's more extreme in the case of the Red Bull.
Well, it is the existential question, isn't it, that we always keep asking ourselves. More answers are about to be given to us. We're just a few moments away from cars getting out onto the track as we go qualifying for the sprint race. I believe drivers are getting into their cars. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, certainly are, and I felt like a bit of a stalker, actually. I was going from the centre of the arena to the back of the garages, and I was walking along, and all of a sudden Charles Leclerc sprang out from the back of a fence, I don't know where from, and started walking in the same direction. So I just followed him along, and everyone just clapping on the back, saying good luck, wanting a selfie. And you forget how much attention is on these drivers, how they have to go through all of that, go through all the selfies and the autographs, and then get into a car and switch on immediately and not be the slowest man out there in sprint qualifying. It's such a culture shock for us to see what they do day to day. They're pretty impressive people.
They certainly are, and this track is not a forgiving one. The walls are very close. We had one crash earlier in practice. It was a fairly light touch against the wall for the Hasselbody Bären, but that will be one of the perilous challenges around this circuit where you're reaching speeds of over 330 kilometres an hour. Right, so we've spoken a bit about McLaren, a lot about Max Verstappen and Red Bull. We'll come on to the rest of the grid, but first, let's get an update again, heading back to City against Wolves. Sarah Mulcairns.
70 minutes gone, Harry. It's City 1, Wolves 0, but there's danger from the visitors. They may not be on the ball much, but when they break quickly. Matheus Cunha almost from nowhere hit the post from the left edge of the area, and then just minutes later the ball was in from the left. Venezia was in their centre of goal. He went down under pressure from Gvardiol. It was waved away, though, their penalty shouts. Omar Marmoush has just fired over for City on a speedy attack for the home side, but there's danger lurking if City cannot secure this. At the moment it's City 1, Wolves 0.
Thanks, Sarah. You're currently listening to 5 Live F1 as we are about to head onto the Miami circuit that encapsulates this Miami Grand Prix track, which runs around the Miami Dolphins NFL Stadium, the Hard Rock Stadium. The grandstands are filling up. The sun is shining. Track temperature about 50 degrees. Now, it is a sprint weekend, second of the season, and so it does bring with it a few tweaks to the qualifying format. We've had our one and only practice session earlier on today. Oscar Piastri was quickest there, and now we go into sprint qualifying, which as usual is split up into 3 segments. They are slightly shortened. We'll have SQ1, which is 12 minutes, SQ2 10 minutes, and SQ3 8 minutes. Now, teams are free to use any of their available tyres in regular qualifying, but in the sprint qualifying, sets of medium tyres are mandatory in the first 2 parts of qualifying. And in the final part, the top 10 shootout, the battle for sprint pole, drivers must run the soft tyre, but they do not have to be a new set. So that's what will happen over the course of the next hour or so, as the cars are already queuing up in the pit lane waiting for that green light. Alongside me up in the commentary box is Rebecca Clancy, Andrew Benson. My name is Harry Benjamin, of Jenny Gow, giving us updates from down on the ground by the garages and the paddock. As this session unfolds, we're expecting McLaren to be strong. Never rule out Max Verstappen, but we also, I think, a bit of a dark horse so far this year. Mercedes, George Russell. How do you think they'll go?
I think he's been pretty strong. He's very stealthy this year, isn't he? Very consistent. He's been on the podium 3 times. This is the 6th round. He's looking pretty good. He's just head down, really focused. There's no real noise around Mercedes at the moment. You know, last year it was all Lewis Hamilton's leaving, and there was lots of focus on what was going on there. And I think for Mercedes at the moment, they're actually embracing this slightly quieter period for them, which sounds a bit mad given that they're probably the 3rd fastest car on the track. But it's head down, get on with it. I think George Russell has been very impressive. Kimi Antonelli, we mentioned earlier about McLaren and that team working together as one. Very much the case at Mercedes as well. It's the team is first. And Toto Wolff is all radio from doing.
Unsafe. Liam Lawson had to brake, otherwise they would have gone into him. And his mechanic was telling him to stop.
That was Jack Doohan straight on to the referee about his fellow competitor.
That was a full-on dobbing in, wasn't it?
That
wasn't
was
just unsafe release.
That's Doohan being a snitch. Although it was clear for everybody to see that they do try and get the edge, and well, that will be referred to race control. But we are then underway. 10 minutes, 43, 42, 41 seconds remaining of this first part of qualifying. We'll look to eliminate the slowest 5 drivers come the end of it, and Max Verstappen in that Red Bull already out onto this circuit. Just over 5.4 kilometres, 3.3 miles, 19 turns, 12 of them go to the left, 7 go to the right, and it begins on a short start-finish straight where, well, it's about 176 metres from the pole position to the right-hander of turn 1. That then follows through a series of fast left-right sweepers that take you through sector 1 before you then get to turn 6 and 7, where it curves round in an ever-tightening left-hand loop. Then you're back onto full throttle get the DRS detection zone, then hit the DRS button just after turn 9. It's a slightly curved straight, just over 1.2 kilometres. That brings you all the way down to the heavy braking zone of turn 11, where you then come into the left as it concertinas up, and then a U-bend to the right takes you into a really tricky part of the track.
I'll change the helmet after this one. Just do this blowing like hell.
Stop it.
That's Yuki Tsunoda in the second Red Bull who wants to change his helmet. I'll just finish off the lap. You get to this really tricky part of turn 14 and 15. It's an elevation change where you're running under the overpass. You're heading up over the crest. It's a really tight chicane. Max Verstappen cutting it last year, hitting a bollard, causing his car damage as well. Might well have cost him the race in the long run. And then as you make your way out of 15, it's an almost 90-degree left-hander out through turn 16, full throttle all the way down the back straight, never ending, over 1.2 kilometres before you get to another heavy braking zone. You loop round through the left-hander of turn 17, sweep your way gently left again, then out through the right, and that is a lap of this Miami International Autodrome circuit. Max Verstappen currently making his way round in Sector 1 at the moment. I feel like Verstappen, Beck, has been quite... I mean, I know he obviously wasn't here on Thursday, so we haven't heard much from him, but he feels like he's got this even more of a quiet confidence about him, having had a week off and the struggles that were so well documented in Bahrain. He's had a bit of a roller coaster ride up until then, from Japan, the Miracle Maker, to Saudi, and then lots of chatter about the cutting the chicane in Jeddah. A week off, how good is that for a driver to kind of reset before they head themselves back in?
About as good as it was for the rest of us to have a week off, I imagine. No, it's absolutely brilliant.
Get your 8 hours in.
Get your 8 hours in, as puts in a great lap there, but very early on, obviously. No, it's needed. We need rest. All of us need rest. It was a gruelling triple header before this. He's come in. He's had a not very consistent season. It's not been great. He's been on the podium 3 times as well, like George Russell. But it has been a bit up and down. For him, it must be a bit odd because we are talking so much about McLaren. He's not exactly going under the radar. And if I was a complete cynic, I would suggest that missing media day was he enjoyed that, let's say. I can't say I blame him.
He was giving birth, Beck.
He was giving birth, yeah, Harry. I'm going to have a word with you after this. He's mature. It's another season under his belt. He's got 4 World Championships. This incredibly long season. We've still got 360 races to go. There's no point getting ahead of yourself and complaining that it's not working out or going badly. It's just a case of get your head down, work with the team. He wasn't particularly happy about the change of teammate. He was very open about that, but they didn't listen to him. So I think where he is now, it's probably been good. And I can speak from experience, having had 2 children. It does definitely give you a different perspective. He's very new to the whole experience. I imagine right now he's just grateful for a good night's sleep. And I think many a parent can attest to that. A night away is no bad thing. But for him, knowing Max Verstappen, and I've said this many times, the person that you meet, he's a very nice guy, he's polite, he's charming. When you speak to him one-on-one, he's open. For me, sometimes it's difficult to marry that person with the driver who is ruthless, relentless, the drive. And so I can absolutely tell you that the second he put on that helmet today, it was game on. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Verstappen's one of the nicest people outside of the car, but when that visor goes down on his helmet, well, he's there to race and he's there to be fastest, and right now he is. But Lando Norris is making his way through the final corner now, fastest of anybody in the first and in the middle and last sectors, I should say, puts himself to the top of the time. 6 minutes left of this first part of sprint qualifying. It is Norris, the 1:27.8, just over half a tenth clear of Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton up there in third, 3.5 tenths adrift ahead of his teammate Charles Leclerc. Then comes Alex Albon, Alonso, Ocon, Sainz, Gasly and Hülkenberg are the top 10. Piastri across the line in the other McLaren puts himself up into third spot, but he's a little bit adrift of his teammate after his first run. 2.5 tenths clear, as Charles Leclerc says, I touched the wall out of turn 16. That's the left-hander that brings you onto that long back straight. Leclerc is currently 5th fastest, just outside of the top 10 at the moment. Hülkenberg, Lawson, Stroll, Doohan and Tsunoda. We're still awaiting times from Kimi Antonelli, who continues the strong pace of Mercedes were showing in FP1. Fastest of anybody in the final sector. The Italian rookie goes to the top of the times. What about his teammate George Russell? He can only manage 5th
in these early stages of qualifying for the sprint race. Still no time from Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls, and Ollie Bearman has now got a time, but he's 19th and last at the moment after the team having to do a quick repair on his Haas car after FP1. Now, we're about to get a little look at Charles Leclerc just touching the barrier, just a little kiss. We saw that with Oscar Piastri in FP1 as well, I think, and this is the sound of it. Just a little touch as he comes out of the exit and makes his way. So, first laps then on the board in this SQ1 session. Let's check in with Jenny Gow.
Yes, I just stood by Mercedes garage actually and watched and waited with them as they sent Antonelli and Russell out. They were the last people to be sent out, and they went one after the other. And I don't know if there's any value in using your teammate to draft or not, but yeah, that's the tactic that they used. It's the tactic that a few of the other teams are using as well. So yeah, we'll see what happens in this session as the McLaren just rumbles past me on its way out of the pit lane.
Thanks, Jen. 3 minutes and 52 seconds. While Jen was chatting, we heard faintly Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber. He had a moment with the wall as well. 19 times on the board. Isaac Hadjar actually has that time deleted for track limits, which isn't really too much of an issue here unless you make a mistake and go wide. Therefore, you're punished really automatically by losing the time. But he's got to go again. I've been quietly impressed by Isaac Hadjar so far this season. I think he has came into this year as maybe somebody you didn't really think was going to cause too many waves, as we've got we've got an Alpine there which is just happened to be wheeled back. It's Jack Doohan who just has to be wheeled back so we can properly get the right hand side of the steering wheel down and make the turn out of the pit lane. Otherwise he would have had a skirmish with the pit wall and they sent him on his way. I don't think he had any contact with it, but he's got away with that one. But to come back, talking of rookies, Isaac Hadjar, still with a bit of pressure now to get a lap time on the board, but I think he's done a really good job in these first 5 rounds.
He's done a solid job. He was probably the rookie that people knew the least coming into it, probably the name that people didn't recognise. Obviously not a great first outing for him in Australia, but I think not many rookies had a great outing in Australia, so we'll move on quickly.
That rookie Fernando Alonso, I think he ended in the wall as well.
Oh, he did, yeah, I know, rookie. He has scored points in 2 of the 5 races so far this season. He's pretty consistent, isn't he? He's doing, you can't ask for much more from him at the moment in that Racing Bull, sorry. How many times? Oh, I know, I get myself in trouble. In the Racing Bulls, yeah, he's been sort of consistent. It's consistent enough that the Racing Bulls probably aren't looking at him and starting to think, who do they need to get him to bump him out?
Well, at the moment, talking of that Red Bull family, Yuki Tsunoda currently finds himself down in 17th with just over 2 minutes left of this first part of sprint qualifying. The top 15 will make their way through as we look to eliminate the slowest 5 drivers. At the moment, it's Jack Doohan in the Alpine, Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull, Gabriel Bortoleto Sauber, Ollie Bearman in the Haas, and Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls, who is now back out there on an outlap. Indeed, all of the bottom 5 are, with the exception of Doohan, who's still in the pits, and Bearman as well. So times to find. Yuki Tsunoda in this gap in between Jeddah, where he had that crash with Pierre Gasly on lap 1, a racing incident that saw them both into the wall. Well, in between now and then, he's had an extensive simulator plan, and he's also been putting in the laps around the Silverstone circuit, I think in the RB19 car. So they really are trying to help Yuki and get him up to speed and as close as possible right now. But they're looking at this is what Red Bull don't want to see every time in the closing stages of any kind of competitive session. Verstappen's up there in the top 3, and question mark over the number 2 driver is struggling to get out of the bottom 5.
Yeah, but it goes back to the conversation we were having earlier. How much do Red Bull need to look in the mirror? How good is that car? How much is Verstappen overperforming it? It's, they've thrown Tsunoda in. They made that decision. For me, it was probably too early, and Lawson maybe didn't get the support that he needed. But Tsunoda has the drive that he always wanted. This is it for him. It's all in. It's now or never. He's got to prove himself. Absolutely. He gave all the big talk. He was very fiery about it. And he's got to perform now. But I just think perhaps that car isn't quite where we think it is, because with so many drivers having passed through it now, who aren't terrible, none of them are terrible. Liam Lawson's a great driver. Maybe the setup team didn't quite work for him, but yeah, not even for the team. For Tsunoda, he doesn't want to look at the scoreboard and see his teammate right up there, and he's gone out in Q1. No,
well, Yuki Tsunoda on an outlap at the moment, the Japanese driver, so he'll get one final flyer. So there's pressure on board the Japanese driver's shoulders to make his way through into SQ2. Lance Stroll crosses the line in the Aston Martin, stays 15th. Hulkenberg up to 9th. Good lap for the German in the Sauber. His teammate Gabriel Bortoleto currently languishing down in 18th. The checkered flag is out. Doohan has taken the flag. He won't get a go. Tsunoda won't either. I don't think they've timed this well. Bortoleto, no. Behrman, no. I think they've misjudged it on the timing slightly, but we'll see what happens when they come through, because Tsunoda, I think, is still pushing out there and trying to find it, but the graphics on our screen have come up and said they've taken the checkered flag. Hadjar goes up into the top 8 at the final lap of asking. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso gets himself up into the top 10. The clock has counted down to 0. At the moment, it's Stroll, Doohan, Tsunoda, Bortoleto and Behrman who all find themselves down in that elimination zone. Carlos Sainz is currently 13th and looking to make his way through up to 3rd, fastest of anybody in the final sector. The two Williams cars looked quick when they put on the soft tyre in FP1 earlier. Following up on that pace on the medium, George Russell in his final lap puts himself up into 1st place. That drops Lawson down to 15th and just on the bubble, and I think that will be it as Gasly gets himself up in the final stages as well. Doohan 17th. Yuki Tsunoda, the big loss there for Red Bull in that second car, down in 18th. Bortoleto 19th with Ollie Behrman in 20th. Lance Stroll also missing out in 16th spot. As we take a breather after that first part of sprint qualifying, let's just hear from Lando Norris.
Yeah, I got held up. Yeah, understood. That was Max.
So Norris on a quick lap being held up by Max Verstappen there. And this is where it all went wrong. We're just seeing a replay of Yuki Tsunoda, who lost time coming out of the final corner. And we're going to see he doesn't get the timing right. They haven't got it there. He comes around the final corner and the lights are on the gantry before he crosses the line. And Tsunoda didn't get his final lap in time, so out goes the second Red Bull in this sprint qualifying session. That's what's happening in the Formula One right now. Let's check back in then with Man City against Wolves. Sarah Mulkerrins.
86 minutes gone. It's Manchester City 1, Wolves 0. Pep Guardiola has just been trying to G up the crowd because this second half has been low on quality chances from the home side. Wolves have had the better of it on the break. They've not been able to find the net. Guardiola has just made a triple substitution in attack to try and bring a little bit more energy. As things stand, though, they are going third. If they can hold on for the win, it's City 1, Wolves 0.
Thanks, Sarah.
Because he's going to run into me. And then you guys put me out of Q1. That's a joke.
Now, we didn't quite catch the full message there, but Jack Doohan not happy with his team and with how that sprint qualifying session went. And it did seem a bit messy right at the end. Hadjar survived right in the closing stages, but not making it through. Lance Stroll out in 16th, Doohan out in 17th, Tsunoda, the big loss, down in 18th, Bortoleto 19th, and Ollie Behrman 20th and last. Liam Lawson just about made it through. That's the sound you can hear as he tries to get on the throttle, having nearly lost his Racing Bull coming through the chicane of turns 14 and 15, rally style almost, as the rear end kicks out, but he manages to hold on to it and lives to fight another sprint qualifying session. But Tsunoda out of that session, Doohan out, and clearly upset. We'll do a bit of digging into that and find out more of the context to that radio message we just caught at the very end there.
So Doohan's complaining that he hasn't got a second run, basically, same as Tsunoda, blaming the team for it. You got me out of Q1 was what he was saying there. And I think the context for that, of course, is there's still this uncertainty about Jack Doohan's seat. We don't know whether he's going to be replaced at some point, whether it's early in the season or later. Here's some radio from Stroll.
The guy in the last corner was so dangerous, he just stayed on the line.
So that guy in the last corner is Max Verstappen. We're just seeing a replay. And let's bear in mind, on the subject of Max Verstappen, that he also held up Lando Norris. This is qualifying for the sprint race. Now, it's only for the sprint race, but if you hold people up, you can get penalties. So we'll have to see how that situation develops, whether he gets reported to the stewards.
That does seem like a rather messy end, particularly for a team, I mean, regardless, like Alpine, for Red Bull, Beck, to mess up Tsunoda not getting across the line. if anything, that boils down to a communication issue as well, because they're monitoring him across the lap on his out lap, and then he still doesn't get through before the checkered flag flies.
I mean, I hate to say it, but I had just said that Red Bull needs to take a look at themselves. Yeah, it's not great. Tsunoda has every right to be angry about it with the team. That is a team call. That's a strategy that's gone wrong there. It looked like, actually, from the replay we saw, that it was even Max Verstappen who slowed him down in the final corner, which cost him the lights, which will be an interesting debrief later.
I'm sure Max won't care, will he?
I think Yuki said I'd love to be wouldn't you want to be a fly on the wall for that one?
Every day of the week.
Absolutely. That's a headache for Red Bull.
Right then, just to confirm, Stroll out, Doohan out, along with Tsunoda, Bortoleto and Behrman, as we have a few moments for the fans to catch their breath in the grandstands, taking the pictures around this circuit, all enjoying their time in the Miami heat. And it really is hotting up, 47 degrees track temperature at the moment. This is a sprint weekend, so it comes pretty thick and fast. You're listening to sprint qualifying right now. We'll have the sprint race getting going. 19 laps of all-out action, no mandatory pit stops. It literally is a sprint to the finish. That'll be on Saturday. You can hear that on the BBC Sport website and app from 5 o'clock on Saturday in the afternoon. That'll get going then, and then we'll have after that qualifying for the Grand Prix. That'll be on also BBC Sport website and app. We might be on 5 Sports Extra as well. We'll bring you up to speed on that, but that will get going with the session starting at 9 o'clock in the evening, and Sunday's race live on BBC Radio 5 Live. We'll have an hour's build-up for that ahead of Lights Out at 9 o'clock in the evening on Sunday, so do join us for that. But as we await for the remaining 15 cars to head back out for the second part of this sprint qualifying, let's check in with Jenny Gao.
Yes, and just watching the drivers come in, the 5 who didn't get through to the second part of sprint qualifying. Yuki Tsunoda seems to, he's got his hands on his hips, his overalls half undone, and he's just explaining what happened and why it happened, but he'll go back for a full debrief. He seems fairly sanguine about it all and just accepting of the fact, whereas Jack Doohan in Alpine just walked past me on my right-hand side and he was fuming. I can't repeat the expletive coming out of his mouth, but unusual to see him so angry, and obviously something went very wrong for both of these men to be here and feel a bit let down.
Certainly is. I think there will be a lot of questions asked in between now and, qualifying for the Grand Prix tomorrow, where they won't want to have these same mistakes happen again. It did seem like Tsunoda was almost maybe waiting for Verstappen to go, and then he didn't, which would a bit of team communication there would have quickly solved that one. So we'll see what Red Bull have to say about that after this session. But we are back then underway for the second part of sprint qualifying. 9 minutes and 2:10 seconds left on the clock, and they are crawling their way out of the pits, just trying to allow themselves all an even gap onto the track. Pressure building on Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time champion in the Ferrari, wants a good weekend after feeling lost, almost having no answers for his pace at the moment in that Ferrari, trying to get on terms firstly with that car and then with his teammate Charles Leclerc.
Still, Harry, an encouraging start for him. He was quicker than Leclerc on the first run. Okay, we saw Leclerc hit the wall after turn 15 there, but I don't think that slowed him down too much, probably. After struggling the last 3 races, to be on Leclerc's pace effectively in that first session, that's something Hamilton can build on for sure.
You're listening to 5 Live F1 right now, sprint qualifying in the middle of that action happening. We will continue the action. We're coming up actually at 10 o'clock. We'll have Stephen Nolan, that'll be after the news, and then you can continue following sprint qualifying over on 5 Sports Extra. But do stay with us until then, as the first runs are now starting to occur. Max Verstappen back out onto the circuit, making his way through sector 1, sweeping through the left-hander of 2, then 3 as he makes his way towards turns 4, 5 and 6. It all comes thick and fast like a roller coaster ride. You're just hanging on for dear life as the sun glints off of that Red Bull livery, makes his way through turns 8 to 9. Full throttle now, fastest of anybody in the first sector. That would make sense. He's out there on track on the medium tyre. making his way now down that just over 1.2 kilometre, slightly curved straight, getting to speeds over 330 kilometres an hour before he slams on the brakes into the left-hander of turn 11, where it concertinas up to the right-hand side, and now you start to tackle that chicane. About an elevation change, about 11 feet sees you up and over the crest, then back down, having negotiated the chicane into a slight 90-degree left-hander before you then embark on what seems like a never-ending back straight, where Max Verstappen has already, when he's been on his slow laps, got himself into a bit of hot water, getting in the way of a couple of drivers on their quick laps, gets up to speeds again 330 kilometres an hour before he hits the brakes into the middle sector, into the final sector. The final corner, embarks round the right-hander, flat out and across the line. And his first time on the board, a 1:27.729 from the Dutchman. George Russell also out there finding time. Kimi Antonelli is the man that's fastest of anybody in the middle sector right now. Antonelli coming alive around these Miami Grand Prix tracks. George Russell will come to the line after him. Antonelli has gone fastest. Let's see if his teammate can find anything and respond in the final sector. George Russell making his way through now. Kimi Antonelli fastest so far, 1:27.727.
Yeah, and Russell 600th behind him on that first lap. This is the first race where Kimi Antonelli has looked properly fast from the very beginning. They've not really been on Russell's pace in qualifying so far. He's had some impressive race drives, but always behind Russell. And this is the first time where he's beginning to show, it's early days, it's only sprint qualifying, but the sort of potential that people talked about him having when he came into Formula One.
Fastest of anybody in the middle sector, fastest overall though, takes it away from Antonelli as Lando Norris, a 1:27.537, 5 minutes and 20 seconds left of sprint qualifying, but I believe the full-time whistle has blown. Man City against Wolves, Sarah Mulkerrins.
City 1, Wolves 0, so City are up to third on the table, 2 points ahead in Newcastle, all thanks to Kevin De Bruyne in his penultimate home game. His goal in the first half, the difference. Doku played it across from the left, he was able to finish it off coolly. Wolves had a couple of decent chances. Bellegarde was through on goal, but he squared it to Menezes, and then in the second half Cunha hit the upright. So City hold on to win and get those all important 3 points in the race for the Champions League next season. City 1, Wolves 0.
Thanks, Sarah. Welcome back to Miami for sprint qualifying. 4 minutes and 35 seconds remain of this SQ2 session, where we will once again look to eliminate the slowest 5 drivers of the 15 remaining. And it's the 2 McLarens who are currently quickest. Oscar Piastri fastest by just over a tenth and a half to Lando Norris. Then it's Kimi Antonelli. Max Verstappen is 4th ahead of George Russell. Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari could only manage 6th, almost half a second away from the McLaren. Then it's Albon, Hamilton nearly a second off, down in 8th, as we still await laps from the likes of Pierre Gasly's Alpine, Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin, Carlos Sainz in the Williams, Esteban Ocon, Isaac Hadjar, Nico Hülkenberg, who has made it through to the second part of qualifying, and Liam Lawson skated through inside the top 15. We've lost Lance Stroll out in 16th place in his Aston Martin, along with Jack Doohan in the other Alpine. Yuki Tsunoda, the big name to fall, didn't get his final run in time, didn't make it to the line before the red lights on the gantry and the clock counted down to 0. Came for the Japanese driver Bortoleto in 19th, and Ollie Behrman 20th and last for the sprint race tomorrow, which will take place, and then after that we'll have qualifying for the Grand Prix. But leaving it right to the end for the majority of these drivers, with just over 3 minutes left on the clock.
Time's always a bit tight with these sprint qualifying sessions, isn't it? This is why the bottom end of the top 15, the Alpines, Saubers and Alonso's Aston Martin are only going out now, because there's only really time for that run. And we'll see that we're going to see it again in the final part of qualifying. Even though it's 8 minutes long, that's not long enough to do 2 laps. So you tend to get a quite slow start to these sessions.
Yeah, Gasly in the sole remaining Alpine, the pink and blue Alpine, as it comes into the sunshine, then immediately hits the shade as it emerges out from the bridge that overlooks the beginning of that long back straight, gearing up for his flying lap, weaving left, weaving right, getting heat into his tyres all the time, as we're just getting a look at a replay from a few moments ago of Alex Albon making his way over the 14 and 15 chicane into the left-hander that sees you on to that back straight. Here's what he had to say.
I don't know how the Merc is legal.
Yeah, copy.
Alex Albon saying, I don't know how that Merc is legal, referring to the Mercedes in front of him.
He's talking about the delta time you have to stick to there. I think on the lap you can only go so slow, and some cars prefer to keep their tyres to go as slow as they possibly can. It's all about spacing on the track and so on from race control, and so I think Albon's referring to that with the Mercedes.
That's why we often see them crawling out of the pit lane, because they're trying to form the gap in the pit lane instead of out on track to try and get away with that one. But Gasly is out onto the circuit, has a best qualifying here for a Grand Prix, at least of 5th place, has raced his way in the Grand Prix to 8th, so is familiar with points around this Miami International Autodrome. And Alpine looking to try and score a few more points on the board. Only 1 points finish so far for Alpine this season, courtesy of Pierre Gasly, finishing in 7th in Bahrain and just being pipped by Max Verstappen on the final lap. It was a good run for Alpine that weekend, as he has a little touch with the wall as he comes out of the left-hander that feeds you on to the back straight, enough to jolt the entirety of the car, but he keeps his foot flat to the floor. The DRS line beckons and the letterbox opens on the rear wing, giving you extra kilometre an hour in a straight line. You then slam on the brakes, the letterbox shuts, you're into the left-hander. Just 2 more corners to go then for Pierre Gasly on that medium tyre, and across the line puts himself up into 8th spot with 35 seconds left on the clock. We're still looking for times from Carlos Sainz, Esteban Ocon, Isaac Hadjar, Fernando Alonso, Nico Hülkenberg and Liam Lawson, all yet to put a lap time on the board.
And the only person who's not gone out for another lap out of the top teams is Oscar Piastri, which just tells you quite a lot about how comfortable he's feeling with his time.
Just getting another look at how close he was, and the graphic that we get on the screen of how close they are to the wall. 0 centimetres confirmed contact for that one, but he carries on his way. Would have lost a little bit of time there. Right now though, it's Verstappen who is clear out in front, a 10th adrift, a 10th ahead of Oscar Piastri. Then it's Norris, Russell, Antonelli, the top 5. Charles Leclerc is 6th. Hülkenberg has taken the checkered flag in 7th. Lando Norris to the top of the times. Then comes Alex Albon, 8th. Gasly, 9th. Hamilton is right on the bubble here. He's actually been pushed down to 11th. Lewis Hamilton vying to try and get himself through into the final part of sprint qualifying. Times to come from Sainz, Hadjar, Alonso and Liam Lawson as the checkered flag is out. The clock has counted down. Lando Norris, fastest of anybody. Fernando Alonso coming through the final corner now. Hadjar gets himself up into 7th. Ocon up into 9th. Lewis Hamilton is currently down in 12th. He's in the middle sector at the moment. Alonso comes across the line, and in that green Aston Martin gets himself up into 7th spot. That pushes Alex Albon down. He's still out there coming into the final sector now. So too is his teammate Carlos Sainz, but he won't do it. He's going slow, is Carlos Sainz. He's bailed out of it. A mistake perhaps for the Spaniard somewhere around this lap. Kimi Antonelli is going to finish off his lap. He's already safe and through, just looking to improve his lap time, moves himself up into 4th spot. Lewis Hamilton though has got time to find here and could find himself out of this second part of sprint qualifying. Liam Lawson takes the flag in 14th. He will not progress through. What can Lewis Hamilton do though? Will he make it through? He crosses the line. He does. Hamilton up into 6th, gets himself into the final part of sprint qualifying. The checkered flag is out. All laps have been completed, and out of SQ2 is Nico Hülkenberg's Sauber, Esteban Ocon's Haas, Pierre Gasly's Alpine, Liam Lawson's Racing Bull, and Carlos Sainz, perhaps with some issues right at the very end, didn't get his final lap time in. Down in 15th. Before we leave you and head into SQ3, Rebecca Clancy, thoughts on the session so far? And well, it looked like it all went wrong for Carlos Sainz with a lock-up.
It's a bit scrappy, isn't it? This is the joys of only having one practice session. It's a kind of a little bit all over the place, it feels like. Oh, Sainz radio.
Sorry for that, guys. My mistake.
A mistake then from Carlos Sainz. Well, he'll be ruining that one. His teammate Alex Albon managed to escape into SQ3. So the final part then of sprint qualifying.
Oh my God, that was so bad.
Liam Lawson not happy with his lap either. He's down in 14th in the Racing Bull. We'll have the final part of sprint qualifying. You can hear that over on 5 Sports Extra. We're going to leave you now on 5 Live. Stephen Nolan is on the way, but first let's get the latest BBC News with Al Tansley. Right, well, for all those who are the hardcore fans of 5 Live Formula 1 who've stayed with us on 5 Sports Extra, we're into the good stuff. It's the final part of sprint qualifying, but well, Andrew Benson, Lewis Hamilton left it right until the final lap to get himself through in that Ferrari.
He did. It's another encouraging lap for him, behind Leclerc still, but by less than a tenth. But the person I want to talk about in that session is Fernando Alonso. Rebecca Clancy's going to laugh about that.
Of course you do.
The Aston Martin is the 8th fastest car on average this season. He's stuck at 9th in sprint qualifying too. That's an extremely good lap from him.
Can you tell everyone what the picture is on the way into the paddock?
You tell them, Beck. Go on, have your fun.
I was sent an amazing picture. So there's a bit of a running joke, let's say, about Andrew Benson and his love of Fernando Alonso. He says it's a joke, you know. Anyway.
Well, look, we're on 5 Sports Extra now. They know.
They know. There's a picture as you walk into the Paddock Club, and I was sent it before I even arrived, and it's enormous, like floor to ceiling, and it is just Andrew Benson looking lovingly interviewing Fernando Alonso. And the best bit about it is that they've transposed it, so it's, you know, they flipped the picture and it runs the whole way along the wall.
Double Benson.
Double Benson. And it's amazing.
It isn't just me, there's a bunch of journalists. But
yeah, but you're the one that shines brightest.
I am front and centre with my big giant forehead, and I have to wonder, what were they thinking? What made the person who's running the Paddock Club at Miami think that that was the right picture to put at the entry to it?
I think that was the only picture that was fitting for the entry to Paddock Club there. That was that. It's one of the best photos you have to find. You have to share it on your social media, Andrew. I think that'd be good on your Instagram.
I'm sure Beck's going to do that for me.
I'll share it.
Have a look for Beck Clancy on all the socials and you'll see it there. Right, well, cars back into the garage while we get ready for this final part of sprint qualifying. So a good time then to check in with our roving reporter, Jenny Gow.
Well, as you continue to slate Andrew Benson for his love affair with Fernando Alonso, I wanted to pick out someone who didn't achieve too much in that session, and Carlos Sainz. What a disappointment for Williams and Sainz. At one point he was leading P1, and Williams did a tremendous job in the first practice session, and now it comes to the qualifying session for the sprint race, and he's in 15th, and we saw that lock up, and he admitted that he had made that mistake, but what a time to make it. You don't really want to do that if you're Williams and Carlos Sainz.
No, you don't, but these things do happen, don't they, even to the very best, and it was a rather big lock-up for Carlos Sainz, who will then give himself some work to do. I suppose there is always the caveat, isn't there, Beck, that this is just qualifying for the sprint, so you get a do-over tomorrow if the sprint doesn't go too well.
You do. There's not loads of points in it. It's not worth ruining your whole weekend for. You make a mistake, there's no point pushing so hard, you end up smashing into the wall. He ended up down an escape road, so it's not the end of the world. It's not great. What they'll end up happening is they'll just use the sprint race, as a bit of a practice session. They'll get a bit more time, a bit more data. It is what it is. You move forward. At the end of the day, it's all eyes on Sunday.
It absolutely is. But Max Verstappen, all eyes on the lights at the end of the pit lane. First to reach them as he waits patiently for them to turn green to get this final part of sprint qualifying underway. Andrew Benson.
That's interesting.
He's gone out quite early.
It's very early. The track's
going to get in trouble.
The track's going to get faster. Well, not just that. That's not what I was thinking of, but I suppose that's a good point. But it's more that the track improves through the session. So you don't, if you're only going to get one run, which you probably are with only an 8-minute session, that's what's happened in the sprint in China anyway. Maybe he'll squeeze 2 in, I don't know. Maybe that's the idea. But you wouldn't want to just run this early and then not run again, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, he's still out there on his own. While we wait for this session to get going, I have to say, impressed so far, Isaac Hadjar. We talked about him in our build-up. He's made it through into the top 10, outclassed teammate Liam Lawson. It's another strong showing for the French rookie.
Yeah, it's great from him, isn't it? It's a bad weekend, or bad start to the weekend, I should say, for Liam Lawson. It's been a bad start to the season, you could probably say. But no, full credit to Isaac Hadjar. He has gone a bit under the radar. As I said, people probably didn't know who he was, but he has got talent in the lower series. Racing Bulls were very confident putting him in that seat. As I said, they're not even looking at him. There's no question marks over him being replaced. He's full credit putting it into Q3. You mentioned it's only sprint qualifying, but ultimately the best you can do, particularly when you're particularly when you're, in the sort of midfield, lower end of the teams. You have to beat your teammate, and that's what he's done today.
Absolutely has. Carlos Sainz is just walking across the pit lane entry bit where I'm standing, followed by Esteban Ocon for Haas, looking both a little bit fried. It's really hot down here. The clouds have cleared. The sun is now beating down on the track. And just a point about Isack Hadjar, I said it earlier again, and I'll keep on saying it, I think, because it's such an extraordinary quote from Dr. Helmut Marko, the special advisor at Red Bull, to say he's the revelation of this season. And Helmut Marko does not give compliments easily or readily. And for him to have said that about one of his own is quite something. And I think he's got it right. Obviously, he has been a revelation. And when you're nurturing young talent, sometimes it just works. You put them into an F1 car and they just go. And sometimes someone with a really strong background in the junior category, you put them in an F1 car and it just doesn't work. And it's fascinating to see what makes an F1 driver, what makes a good F1 driver, and what makes an outstanding, gifted F1 driver. And the margins are so tight this year, it's even more exciting to watch.
It certainly does, Jen. I mean, it is really interesting when you look at it, that perspective. There was a lot of talk about Kimi Antonelli, wasn't there, in his junior career, such as he rated. He skipped Formula 3, went into Formula 2 and wasn't exactly lighting the world up. And neither was Ollie Behrman, but we know there were caveats. The team they were with, it was a new car, struggling to get to grips with it. And actually, the two drivers that finished first and second at the end of Formula 2, well, that was Gabriel Bortoleto, who's down in 19th, but the Sauber car isn't really that great, but his teammate is up in 11th. And Isack Hadjar finished second in that championship and is so far showing up his more experienced teammate, Liam Lawson. So it's really hard actually to get a gauge in this current climate, I think, of how good a junior driver really is in Formula 2. You've got to almost just have to give them a shot in Formula 1. They might fly or they might fall, but you're not going to know until you put them in the seat of your Formula 1 car, which I imagine is risky business.
But I love how many rookies we have this season. I love that there has to be a cycle, you have to bring the young talent through. That's the entire point of having these driver programs. And you're right, you have to see if they sink or swim. Junior categories, it doesn't come with anywhere near the pressure of the Formula 1 cauldron, or all the pressures, the whole routine, everything that goes with it. It's the next series up, but it's a totally different job. And it's a huge, even the money that comes with it, it's you can't even get your head around it. And it's the question, though, how long do you give them? I mean, if you're in the Red Bull stable, you probably don't get very long. Mercedes will give Antonelli all season, absolutely no doubt about it. And to be fair to Antonelli, he's doing a great job. But it's that tricky one, because you want experience, because you need the feedback on the car for the development race and just getting the points on the board and ticking over, because we know the difference between the places in Constructors' Championship. It's tens of millions of dollars, and it's so important. But at the end of the day, you have to nurture that young talent. You have to bring it through. You have to find the next Max Verstappen. Everyone thought Red Bull were a bit crazy when they brought him through, so young. And then he gets promoted in Spain, and, I mean, a bit of a thanks to Mercedes. But anyway, he did it. He went. You find your own luck.
You had to be in it to win it.
You had to be in it to win it. He was in the right place to take advantage of the luck. So it's an amazing story. Obviously, you're not going to find a Max Verstappen. He's a once-in-a-generational talent, really. But it's great that these teams have these young driver programs. I think it's really important. I also think it's an incredibly expensive sport, so you can't really progress too far without that financial support. But yeah, for me, it's always the question of how long you give them.
Well, for all the flack we give Red Bull, we owe them a lot. We owe them a lot of drivers in this sport, whether they've stayed with Red Bull or gone on to other teams, or they've had their moment. They've tried to showcase what they can do. And I think it was Franz Tost, the school of Toro Rosso. Give your driver, a driver needs 3 seasons to fully embed themselves and to show what they've got. And if they can't do it after 3 seasons, well, then they've had 3 seasons in Formula 1. They've had that opportunity. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
You're not getting 3 seasons now, are you? No way.
Well, you can bet. Well, if you're Liam Lawson, you're getting 3 races, if that. And then that's it. But it's a brutal, cutthroat world. But if you're getting to the periphery of Formula 1, then you're doing something right. And then if you can get into it, then it's about trying to stay there and prove your worth. 2 lap times on the board in this sprint qualifying final session with less than 3 minutes left to go. George Russell is quickest, everybody going out on the soft tyre. He's got a 1:26.791, almost 3/10 clear of Max Verstappen, who was out early doors. And now the rest of the field are emerging from the pit lane on their out laps, ready to get their tyres heated up. So while they do that, Jenny Gow, what more news do you bring?
Well, it's just the split-second timing of that move out. It's about 4 drivers all were released at exactly the same time, and they funneled out into the pit lane, and it was a real cacophony of noise and action and a hubbub as they joined that pit lane to go onto the track. And the timing that they put into exactly when to release their drivers and their cars, and they all choose exactly the same time.
It's always the way, though, isn't it? In Formula 1, they've all got the same data. They're all trying to get the edge on. Leclerc and Hadjar have stayed in the pits. Just noticed on those first runs, Andrew, between Russell and Verstappen, no, ignore me. I'm going the wrong way on that one. You say what you're going to say.
Russell's 2.5 tenths quicker than Verstappen on those runs, but I was right. So remember I was saying that they've gone out really early, and are they going to try and squeeze 2 runs in? Verstappen's definitely doing that. And remember, it was a couple of races ago, I can't remember which one it was, but he did was it maybe even Saudi Arabia? He did something similar where the McLarens only did 1 run at the end of qualifying, or in one of the sessions, and he did 2, and it won in pole position. So what the idea is, you get one, if you get 1 lap on your soft tyres and then another one, you've got 2 chances to do the time, and also you've got not only you can afford to not take the risks so much on the first lap, but you know where you're going to find the time on the second, but you've already got a time in the bag. Whereas all the other drivers, the other 8 drivers in the top 10, they've got 1 shot. If they get it wrong, then it's all over. So let's see how that works out for Verstappen. I'm going to see if I can look back and work out which race that was where he did that and McLaren did a different strategy.
All right, thank you very much, Andrew. You go and do that. Well, it's almost 1-shot qualifying then, really, except for Russell and Verstappen. We'll see if Russell emerges again. I don't think he has, so he's not going to get time to do another one anyway. So Verstappen will, he's out there on the track. So Hamilton, Albon, Alonso, Norris, Piastri, Antonelli, Leclerc and Hadjar, along with Max Verstappen then, all vying for their final qualifying spots as we go sprint qualifying ahead of the sprint race tomorrow, which you can hear on the BBC Sport website and app. Lights out of that from 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. And Lewis Hamilton, who is a man searching for all the answers he can possibly find to try and get himself up to speed in that Ferrari. So far throughout this sprint qualifying session, it's actually looked a little better. He's been much closer to Charles Leclerc than he was at the last round in Saudi Arabia, as the clock has ticked down to 0 through the first sector for Hamilton. It's decent. Max Verstappen, though, going again. He is fastest of anybody through the first sector as Hamilton negotiates the chicane at 14 and 15, out through the left-hander of 16. That's where the exit wall is, where we've seen so many drivers have a little touch with the tyre against the surface of the wall. Hamilton leaves enough of a gap and now powers his way down the over 1.2 kilometre back straight, getting to speeds of almost 340 kilometres an hour before he hits the brakes, slams the DRS shut, round the left-hander. Just 2 more corners to go, taken flat out through the left-hander, then the right-hander. The final lap for Lewis Hamilton in this sprint qualifying, 2 tenths down on George Russell. It's enough for second for the time being. Let's see how far he can stay there. Albon takes the flag in 4th, Alonso 5th, as Verstappen takes provisional sprint pole by just over half a tenth of a second, but Antonelli in the dust crosses the line and the Italian rookie goes to the top. But what about the 2 McLarens? We're expecting them to challenge. Lando Norris doesn't do it. He's a 10th down. He manages second. Antonelli is currently on course to take sprint pole. Kimi Antonelli with a 1:26.482 by less than half a tenth of a second will start the sprint race from pole position. Mercedes can barely believe it. They're smiling and clapping. Antonelli, P1, ahead of Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris 3rd. Verstappen 4th. George Russell down in 5th. 3 tenths down from his teammate Antonelli. Leclerc, Hamilton, Albon, Hadjar and Alonso, the top 10. Jenny Gow, my word, what a lap from Antonelli.
That was absolutely epic. And as Max Verstappen set his fastest lap, the crowd went crazy. They were all standing on their feet cheering. And then Antonelli set his lap and they cheered even louder. I didn't think it was possible to see such impassioned fans here in America. But they know their stuff and they're excited about Antonelli. Who would have thought it?
with that, now there's always the caveat that this is a sprint, so where do you differentiate the stats? I know. But Antonelli has secured a front row start for a race in Formula One, and in doing so becomes the youngest driver to start from the front row.
Yes, mate. That's P1. Yes! Yes, mate! Come on! Come on! Well done, lad. Huh? Not bad, not bad. I think we're getting somewhere.
Kimi, you're not on Andrea today.
Definitely not.
Kimi Antonelli with Toto Wolff and Pete Boddington. Bono, who was the voice that Lewis Hamilton heard in his ears throughout his Mercedes tenure. Now Bono with the young Italian rookie, who becomes the youngest driver to start from the front row of a Formula One race. He takes that record away from Lance Stroll.
How does that feel then? Mate, it feels mega.
As he pulls up into Parc Fermé, George Russell, his teammate, comes over, gracious, gives him a handshake as Antonelli climbs out of the car. This is the wonder kid Mercedes told us to watch out for. The man, they opted to miss Formula 3 and step straight into Formula 2. And then the man they decide is the one to replace their 7-time champion, Lewis Hamilton. And after 5 rounds, at the 6th round, he will start on the front row for the sprint. And will start a Formula 1 race from pole position, as he congratulates the McLaren drivers, Piastri and Norris. Piastri ahead of Norris. I mean, Jenny, we were saying it throughout the session, this is probably the first weekend where Antonelli has looked, well, on par and better than Russell.
I mean, he's absolutely shining so far this weekend. And I cannot tell you how excited the guests at Mercedes are right now. They've got this, it's really cool at the back of the garage. It's emblazoned with pole across it in these LCD display screens. And they were celebrating as if they'd won the race. And I mean, they are just thrilled. It's happened so quickly for Kimi Antonelli. Amazing.
It is wonderful. I mean, Beck, the smiles coming out from Toto Wolff, even Stefano Domenicali's down there to say congratulations.
He doesn't actually know what to do. The FIA, the woman that directs the whole thing, is going to speak now and do some interviews, and Kimi Antonelli has no idea where he's going because he's not used to being in this position. We saw gorgeous pictures, his dad's there celebrating. We talk about, we were saying earlier about sprint qualifying, it's just a sprint race, it's not the main race, but he's celebrating like he's just claimed his first ever proper pole position, and great for him. It's absolutely fantastic. You need to get these under your belt. It just all builds to exactly where he needs to be.
The 18-year-old from Bologna, who is still needs a bit of help from Mario Isola, the chief at Pirelli, to undo the cables attached from his helmet into his radio that's lodged into his hands device. And really Mario Isola's struggling. He's done it, I think, as Max Verstappen stops to have a laugh and a giggle with Kimi Antonelli as well. Those 2 runs didn't help Verstappen. He ended about 3/10 adrift down in 4th behind the 2 McLaren drivers. But the biggest smile is Kimi Antonelli, who goes to be weighed and will start from pole position for the sprint race. He will have the best view in the house ahead of 19 laps of flat-out racing, no mandatory pit stops. Now, it may well only be a sprint, but as you say, Beck, it bodes well for the rest of the weekend. His dad watching on, thumbs up, also a racer in his youth and into his later years as well, doing some GT racing. Now fully supporting his son as a Formula One driver. Antonelli ahead of Piastri and Norris. Let's hear from them, speaking with Tom Christensen.
Wow, Kimi Antonelli, what a fantastic lap. The fastest ever here at the Miami circuit. Tell us about the feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very intense qualifying. I felt really good since this morning, and I felt confident going into qualifying. And yeah, I mean, the last lap was mighty. I put basically everything together, and it was nice that it came all, very nicely, and really happy to get the first pole.
You're the youngest ever to start at the front of a Formula One race, sprint race, or even a Grand Prix. What's that gonna take you the weekend?
Definitely. I mean, tomorrow is gonna be nice to start on the front row. It's gonna be a bit of a different feeling. but really cannot wait for tomorrow and to see how we can do in the sprint and then in the qualifying as well.
Everyone is applauding you. Fantastic job, Kimi, and good luck for this amazing weekend.
Thank you so much.
Kimi Antonelli, who secures pole position for the sprint race here in Miami, the second of the season. He will start ahead of the two McLaren drivers, Oscar Piastri in second, Lando Norris third, Verstappen was fourth, George Russell fifth, the two Ferraris, Leclerc and Hamilton, sixth and seventh. Then comes Alex Albon's Williams, Isaac Hadjar ninth, ahead of Fernando Alonso in the top 10, Hulkenberg, Ocon, Gasly, Lawson and Sainz the top 15, with Stroll, Doohan, Tsunoda, Bortoleto and Ollie Behrman making up the remainder of the field. We will be racing, as I say, 19 laps. No mandatory pit stops for this Miami sprint. We'll be on air for that from 5 to 5 on Saturday in the afternoon, ahead of Lights Out from 5 o'clock. Hope you can join us then. We'll be with 1996 Formula One World Champion Damon Hill in the commentary box. But my thanks to Rebecca Clancy, to Andrew Benson, to Jenny Gow. I've been Harry Benjamin. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.